Right now, though, I have another just god-awful, terrible segment to do with the great Brian Harrison. I mean, we might as well just play the Omen theme every time you come on. He's the state representative out of the Midlothian area, and he's been giving us regular updates on the Texas legislative session for 2025, and it's an absolute dumpster fire. However, at least you actually passed a bill this time, Brian.
Yeah, we sure did, and I feel like there should be a sign over the entrance of the Texas House floor that says, "Conservatives, abandon hope, all ye who enter here," because that is what it is like. If you're a fiscal conservative in Texas, things are not good for you. Yeah, the Texas House, after 11, 12 weeks of total inaction, except for the occasional Beyonce resolution, we finally passed a bill today. And what does the bill do? In fact, the bill gets better. The bill came out of the DOJ committee. That's right. The Texas House of Representatives followed President Trump's lead, and they stood up a DOJ committee. Well, what did the DOJ committee pass today on the floor of the House, with just about every Republican, by the way, voting for it? Oh, it passed a bill to empower the bureaucratic state by enshrining Chevron deference into law, the same Chevron deference that the Supreme Court just struck down. Well, let's see, what else did the bill do? Oh, yeah, it grows government, it increases spending, it expands the bureaucracy, and it gives more power to the executive branch of government instead of the legislative branch, which is the people's branch. Oh, and by the way, it now officially, because it protected Chevron deference in Texas, Texas courts are now officially more liberal than federal courts. I wish I was making this up, but unfortunately, everything I said is 100% fact, and it just goes to prove that campaigning as Republicans to cut government and reduce spending, apparently that's just something that most Republicans want to do around primary season. But when it comes down to actually governing in the capital of the state of Texas, at every opportunity, most Republicans down here just vote to grow government, increase spending, and we all know what that means. Taxes go up too. So I wish I had a better update for you, my friend, but things are just not getting better. In fact, they're getting worse down here.
No, that's all right. State Rep Brian Harrison, they're all terrible so far. So we actually have done something about it. We don't just gripe about it. We made the unofficial rhino list, and I've been passing that around, and when people say, what can I do about it? This is the list. This is the people we need to primary. If you want the list, I'll send you the link. It's on WBAP.com, but it's probably scrolled way down, and you won't be able to find it as easily as just sending me a message on Facebook or email or whatever. I'll send you the list, and let's keep putting that out on Twitter, X, Facebook, all that good stuff to get that out there. Because the next question is, when do we get a chance to primary these people?
Well, so filing deadline for folks to run is at the end of this year, and then the primary is next March. But you know what? I actually think people should take a stand right now. There's an opportunity for elected Republicans, even if you're one of the ones that sold out and voted for the Democrats' choice, Speaker Burrows, you can take action right now. I made a motion last week that hasn't been made in decades because I'm sick and tired of the unconstitutionally lawless corruption, and I made a motion to vacate the chair. I want to force a vote right now. Let's do this again. Speaker Burrows, we need to have a vote to remove him because he has committed what I think is the biggest form of voter fraud. Voters gave Republicans all the big majorities in the Texas House, but he sold the voters out by cutting a deal with 50 Democrats and those 36 rhinos to empower the Biden-Harris agenda. And he's lied. He tried to unconstitutionally enforce work and votes. Even when we didn't have a quorum present, he let the Democrats write the budget in secret in violation of the House rules to fund DEI and transgender ideology. He needs to be removed. So if you've got a Republican that represents you, you call them and you ask them if they are supportive of the motion to vacate Dustin Burrows so that we can finally put a real Republican in charge of the Texas House. They could do that right now. We don't have to wait till next November. Let's support the motion to vacate the chair, and let's get him out of there and get a real Republican.
Right. And if you want to find out if your representative is one of the turncoats that is voting to expand government and grow it and do the opposite of what the Republican platform should be, we have a map. It's part of the list. You can find out if you live in one of these districts that has a rhino in it and do something about it. Now, I heard you on a friend of mine's radio show, and I learned something from you that broke my heart. How bad the free state of Texas is when it comes to licensing requirements.
Oh, my goodness. So, let me take this up 2 seconds to go back. Texas has a reputation for leading in liberty and freedom and small government and low taxes, but I'm going to be real direct with the Texans that are listening right now. Your government has just been coasting on that reputation, and in many ways, we are acting much more like California or Washington, D.C. than the great state of Texas. And this should break your heart, and it should make you angry that, in fact, the state of Texas, forget this myth, the lie that we're a low-regulation state. That is just not true. And, in fact, the state of Texas, I'm going to say this slowly, the state of Texas has more occupational regulations and red tape and licensing requirements than every other state in the union. And yes, that includes California and New York. There is more bureaucratic occupational regulations in Texas than every other state in America. And I'm sick and tired of Texans have the wool pulled over their eyes and being defrauded by the Republicans that they have elected to protect their freedom, to cut government and get their taxes down. And what they've actually been doing under the corruption down here of the pink dome in the swamp of Austin is they have been secretly colluding with Democrats to grow government, increase spending, increase regulations, and yes, increase taxes, and that includes property taxes. Now, the rate we're going right now, James, you're going to hear a lot of bluster about property tax relief. Let me tell you, if something doesn't change, everybody's property tax bill is going to go up after this session's over. That is the trajectory we're on right now. I filed over 40 amendments to the budget we're going to fight on this week on Thursday. They're only going to give about $3 billion back in property tax relief. $3 billion out of a $24 billion surplus.
But we don't just get on the radio and gripe. We try and do something about it. We first made the Rhino hit list. It's got a map and a list of all the Republicans that you sent to Austin that immediately when they got down there, they started coalescing and voting with the Democrats who do not have your agenda at heart. And on top of that, Brian, luckily being down in Austin, can actually file bills. And so instead of just griping, you actually have pen to paper on a proposal to add to this budget that would, accomplish property tax cuts or a return of money or a rebate check? What else in your bill?
Yeah, well, let's just start by telling folks the bad news is that the state of Texas, while President Trump and his Doge are cutting government and reducing spending and trying to figure out a way to get tax money back in the pockets of taxpayers, the state of Texas is about to blow out the budget. I mean, the budget they've written is a liberal, bloated train wreck. It increases state spending just in 2 budget cycles, 42%. And people wonder why their property taxes, are not going down. But no, but I want to have solutions. Look, I love this state. I want Texas. We should be leading the nation, freedom, liberty. We should be the number one state for liberty in America. And so what I've done is our budget is absolutely terrible. We're going to debate and vote on the budget this Thursday, so just a couple days from right now. And I have filed amendments to basically rewrite the whole thing the way a real Republican. If Texas was led by real Republicans, this is what the budget would look like. I found $90 billion that we could cut simply by stopping funding government entities that are pushing transgender ideology and DEI, and then take that $24 billion surplus that's just sitting around on your money, take some of the rainy day fund, because we've got almost $30 billion. We're blowing through the cap. We are sitting on piles, tens and tens, maybe as much as close to $100 billion, just piles of overtaxed money from hardworking Texans. And if we would just take the money that we're already sitting on, that we've already taken from you, as well as defunding all of the liberal, leftist, Marxist agenda that, yes, the Texas government is funding, we could overnight cut every Texan's property tax bill just about in half and immediately put our, that means starting this year. Imagine if your property tax bill was down by 40 or 50% from what you paid last year. We could do that if enough Republicans in Austin acted like Republicans, and even better, we could put our state on a path to eliminate property taxes almost completely over the next 5 or 10 years if we took bold action today. So I filed 38 amendments to basically rewrite the budget that would cut property taxes almost in half immediately. It would end and defund DEI and liberal gender ideology in our state agencies and our public universities. It would stop corporate welfare, including the hundreds of millions of dollars we're sending to liberal Hollywood, which I still can't believe I have to say in a Republican state.
What else is in the corporate welfare? Because that's the first thing I thought of was the Hollywood, but you didn't say Hollywood. You said corporate welfare, which kind of betrays the idea that there's a lot more going on out there. What don't I know about?
Well, there's a whole lot of corporate welfare that's coming down the pipe. I mean, first of all, we reinstated something called these 313 tax abatements last session. And what that does is it lets rich, woke, multinational Fortune 500 companies come into Texas. And these guys have tons of money, and they don't have to pay property taxes. And it shifts the property tax burden to the ma and pa businesses that have been servicing their community for generations. They're having to pay full freight or even pay more on property taxes. And there's a whole ton of these companies. Like pretty much if you think of a big major company, there's a good chance that the Texas government has used your tax dollars to entice them to come to Texas. By the way, this has included countless green energy wind projects over the past several years. We've got corporate welfare and something called the Texas Energy Fund, which is basically putting taxpayer money at risk to big energy producers. I want to get rid of that and use all that money to lower taxes. But yeah, on the property tax thing, I got to say one more word about that because a lot of folks don't know. Last session, we already did this. We gave $200 million to liberal Hollywood last session. So I hope everyone enjoyed paying their property tax bill because it could have been $200 million lower. And this year, they want to take that $200 million and turn it into $500 million in this cycle and $1.5 billion. I just learned this, $1.5 billion to liberal Hollywood over the next few years. This is straight up socialism, and it's putting Texas taxpayers last when the job of government is to protect liberty, and it's about darn time we put Texas taxpayers first instead of the liberal special interests that clog up the hallways down here with well-paid lobbyists and movie stars trying to bilk the hardworking men and women out of their paycheck. I've had it.
Well, it also sounds like y'all been so busy and working so hard, you could probably use a long weekend somewhere in there. All right, State Rep Brian Harrison, thanks for the terrible update. Not that they don't deserve it, but hopefully good news will be coming eventually.
Well, we're not going to stop fighting, James. I appreciate the transparency you bring in. God bless you, and God bless the great state of Texas.
Right, and for those of you listening, I'm really enjoying Brian Harrison's Twitter feed, X feed, whatever we call it now. If you're looking for the one guy that is giving you the regular reports, I kind of have to check in with this guy about once or twice a week just to see if it's gotten any better. So follow him online or follow me online or follow us both online. That's your update. I know you're not very happy with it. We have a new segment on the show by popular demand called What Did Jasmine Say This Time? Jasmine
Crockett, queen of the liberal tea. Bleach blonde, bad built butch body, Governor High Wheels, and he is a hot ass mess, honey. Queen of
the liberal tea. You know, and speaking of singles, people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, she's single, never married. She's good looking. I wonder if she has the same issue. Where does she go to meet people? Maybe we should have her on to talk about that. I don't think she wants to come on to talk about politics, but we're going to be doing that in the 4 o'clock hour. Where do you meet single people past the age of 40? But in today's edition of What Did Jasmine Crockett Say This Time? She's saying we're done picking cotton, which I guess technically she's not wrong.
The fact is, ain't none of y'all trying to go and farm right now. Okay, so I'm lying. Raise your hands. You're not. We done picking cotton. We are. You can't pay us enough to find a plantation.
Okay, well, that's still not a thing anymore. No one picks cotton by hand, but let's just go ahead and address like that first sentence there. None of y'all want to be farmers. Well, 2% of us are farmers. Most of us aren't farmers. That's true. But there's not nobody that does. It's not that nobody wants to be a farmer. My dad wants to be a farmer. There's people out there. Where do you think our food comes from? There's plenty of people that want to be a farmer. In fact, in most schools, I don't know if they had an FFA at your private school in St. Louis, but we had an FFA in Bug Tussle and pretty much every surrounding town. You got the kids in their dark blue corduroy jackets with all the embroidery on it. And they're going to these FFA meets and they're judging goats and milk. Like in the scene from Napoleon Dynamite when they had to, he's like, drink some milk. He's like, this cow got in an onion patch. And then he's like, correct. Yes. Remember when they were doing the FFA meet? So that's not something that is totally unseen in your world or my world. I mean, if you would have to live in a pretty staunch, densely urban blue bubble to not even come across people that like farming or want to be farmers, or really where I'm from, there's a lot of people that just do it for fun. Like they're not even a professional farmer. They have a day job and then they just keep a plot of land. My parents, they grew coastal hay. So yeah, there's a lot of people that not only do they like it, they do it for fun. And even if it doesn't pay the bills, even if it's not their main job, they just love it so much, they just do it anyway. There are a lot of people who are down with farming. Now, I am glad that we're not doing the cotton picking anymore. However, I just kind of, it's cringy that this is associated with slavery now, because when I was growing up, my grandmother would tell me stories about how, during the summer, they had summers off, and sometimes if the harvest was later, they might get to miss a little bit of school because everyone in town would go to the cotton fields and start picking, and you could just make some side money. In fact, one of my grandmother's friends, Herschel Wheat, who I think is dead now, but he tells the cutest stories about how he remembers being 3 and 4 years old, and he would go with his mom to pick cotton. Now, she didn't have a job. She was just a housewife. But, it's an easy way to make a couple bucks, and you can do it on your own schedule, and you get X amount of dollars per giant duffel burlap bag of cotton that you pick. And he would go out there and he would try and help her. But he said he would get tired halfway through the day, and he would just sit on his mom's now halfway full cotton sack, and she would have to drag him around in the rows between that. But look, okay, we're past that. All right. We now have these machines that pick cotton at a rate that is just totally impossible by regular humans. In fact, one cotton combine can do 6 rows at a time. It can do 10 acres an hour. It does the work of 250 manual laborers who are picking cotton by hand. So we are way past that. But another thing you might want to notice there, not just in the content of what she said, but the actual presentation of what she said. Does she not know how to conjugate her be verbs? Now, we know she does. We have other clips of her where she's speaking properly and not speaking street. And I understand the phenomenon of code switching. We all do it to a certain degree. You don't talk in front of your friends at the bar like you talk in front of the delicate, sensible ears of your grandmother. But this was just off the charts. She's playing a character. See, this is why I don't think she's stupid at all. When we were talking with Tim Young yesterday, who's the dumbest member of Congress, she's not even in the bottom 10, bottom 20. I think a lot of this is just PR, and it works. But just listen, the conjugation on this, terrible.
The fact is, ain't none of y'all trying to go and farm right now. Okay, so I'm lying. Raise your hands. You're not. We done picking cotton.
You not. We done picking cotton. She went to extremely expensive, exclusive private school in St. Louis, only for the richest of rich. You don't think they covered conjugation at some point in her stellar academic upbringing? Or maybe when she got to college, maybe when she went to law school, she has a Juris Doctorate. She's got multiple degrees. She's a lawyer. You don't think she knows how to conjugate better than this? And then the final salvo here.
We are. You can't pay us enough to find a plantation.
I have problems with that too. I submit that Garrett would go pick cotton if you paid him $1 million a day. I would do it for a much lower sum than that. You probably have a number in which you would do it. I love this fantasy that we're just these effete, soft, tenderfoot babies. We're Fabergé eggs, and we're scared. We couldn't handle picking cotton. So what? So Democrats want to import dark people to come be your agricultural laborers? Didn't y'all do this already and it didn't work out too good? It's not looked upon too brightly in the history book, is it? So yeah, when you have the today's edition of What Did Jasmine Crockett Say This Time, it's a doozy.
Jasmine Crockett, queen of the liberal tea.
Bleach blonde, bad built butch body, Governor Hot Wheels, and he is a hot ass mess, honey.
Queen of the liberal tea.
Mark my words, she will convert before our life is over. She will be a Republican at some point. I know that's way out there, but that's what I do. I say dangerous things that other people only think. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was in Texas this weekend, not for a good reason. He's the Health and Human Services Secretary, and we had a second child die from the measles outbreak in the Mennonite community over in by Seminole. What is that? Gaines County. And so he came down here to sort of check it out. And that's the third death overall from this outbreak. Second death in Texas. There was an adult in New Mexico just across the line that died of measles as well. But the news is quick to point out over here in Austin American-Statesman, and then I read another article on PBS that all three of these people were not vaccinated. But I talked to a virologist, Dr. Benjamin Newman from Texas A&M, their top virologist. He's been on the show saying if you got the measles vaccine many, many years ago, you likely have very little, if any, protection from that. And he recommends adults get a booster. Now, I can't wrap my head around this. Which is it? Are you in serious danger of not having coverage from the measles vaccine if you've never had the vaccine? And if you've had the vaccine, but it's been a long time ago? Because then he comes down here and RFK says that he not only is okay with people getting the MMR vaccine, measles, mumps, rubella. He says it's on X on Sunday. He said it's the most effective way to prevent the spread of measles. So we've been using this MMR vaccine for over 60 years. It's even older than old Parker here. It's rated at 97% effective against the measles after 2 doses. But I question the idea that coverage goes away over time, because who has had an MMR vaccine in adulthood? Have you? I haven't. What percentage of adults do you think are past that 10 to 20 year threshold? Probably most of us, all of us, almost. I mean, it's got to be like 99%. Who goes back and doubles up on their childhood vaccine boosters? I mean, I'm in my 40s. When was the last time I had a vaccine? Forever ago. Since I was a minor. I didn't get the COVID vaccine. I don't get the flu shot. I don't do any of that dumb stuff. Well, I don't want to call it dumb. I just don't do it. I make the personal choice that I'm a pretty healthy guy, and I'd rather just take my chances here. But you can't have it both ways. You can't say, well, these anti-vaxxers in the Mennonite community are not following the science because they're refusing to get vaccines, and that's why they're suffering. They don't have any protection from vaccines. And then at the same time say, if you haven't had the shot in 10 to 20 years, you don't have any protection from the vaccine. Well, how is it that the rest of us don't have measles by now? How is it that it's not spreading faster and further? How is it staying confined to this Mennonite community and not going outside of it? So what is it? Does the MMR vaccine still give us protection or not? Because if not, then we should all be in the same boat as the Mennonite community. And I hate the fact that I don't have any answers for you, but I do find it interesting that RFK, who's been known for being anti-vax, and not anti-all vaxes all the time, but just at least a vaccine skeptic, to actually come out and say that, on X at least, that it was the most effective way to prevent the spread of measles. I did get the MMR vaccine. All 4 of my kids have gotten the MMR vaccine. Miss Parker has gotten the MMR vaccine. I mean, it was before I knew her. Miss Parker. And that's all we're going to do. Am I telling you what you should do? Man, I'm not a doctor, and I am not confident enough in my medical opinions that I would want to recommend something that didn't work out great for you. I'm just telling you how I feel on this one. I'm not getting another one. In fact, for the rest of my life, I don't foresee getting a vaccine. I am really burned from what happened during COVID, because we just found out that doctors aren't this noble profession that's all about doing the right thing and saving lives and the Hippocratic Oath. We learn that the medical community and doctors can be bought off just as easily as politicians. But anytime RFK is going to come to Texas and say something that kind of goes counter to what I expected, and this is happening in our own backyard, and this is something that we should probably be concerned about, I'll be happy to pass it along. I just found that, I don't know, not unsettling, but just wasn't near my expectations. All right, we have the Blue Ribbon Roofing 2025 WeatherCon coming up April 26th. This is going to count as the James Show listener meet and greet. For April, I don't want to try and talk you into going to 2 events. I don't deserve that much of your time outside of the James Show. So come on out. It's on a Saturday. So for some of you people who've complained, I can't do anything during the week or can't do anything on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. This is a Saturday, 9:30 in the morning till 1:30 in the afternoon. So if you have a soccer game in the morning for the kiddo and you can't make it at 9:30, come later. It doesn't matter. Show up at 11, 12, 1. The big reason you want to get there early is there's presentation that Storm Chasers put on. There's a lot of scientific stuff for the kiddos where like Dr. Brainiac, or what was his name, does these cool things that the kids just ooh and ah over. He's half clown, half scientist. It's just a whole lot of good stuff for the kiddos to check out. There's not only family friendly, it's educational, and you're surrounded by the Frontiers of Flight Museum. And since it's a free event, you get to see all the exhibits at a museum you would normally have to pay for. And it's all thanks to Blue Ribbon Roofing. They're the title sponsor of the 2025 WeatherCon. Come on out. Meet Hal J. Meet Brad Barton. Meet me. I believe we're going to talk Casey into being there. So April 26th, 9:30 in the morning. Coming up next, I've already got some great responses. I was asking earlier in the show, where do people meet each other? Where do singles meet each other over the age of 40? I have a lot of friends in this situation, some coworkers, some colleagues, some people that I downright hate are in this situation. But me being in a happy marriage, I have no advice to give. I am terrible. I'm the wrong person to ask, but I want to help. So I've been asking, where do you meet people? Do you have any recommendations? What has worked for you? And I've actually gotten some really good responses. If you want to get them in, send me an email, james@wbap.com. You can send me like a direct message on X/Twitter. You can send me a Facebook Messenger message. Just get it in, and I'm going to review some of these, and we'll help some people find love, or at least fight loneliness. Coming up next, I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. We were talking about RFK's visit to Texas. There's been a second child die in the measles outbreak. What's going on here? He said something nice about vaccines. I don't know. I'm still not taking it. I'm not going to get a measles booster. I don't care if people around me start getting it. I'm just going to take my chances. And I don't think I'm going to get another vaccine ever for the rest of my life. What do you think? 800-288-9227. Lindsay Granberry, you're on WBAP. What do you think?
Hey, I was going to just speak to the question you had about whether or not the efficacy can wane, because I had personal experience with it. When I went to nursing school, I didn't have my shot records from childhood, which is when you get the MMR. And so I had what's called titers done, which is where they pull your blood and they test your immunity for all the main things that you're immunized for. And my MMR actually did not meet the threshold that was required to be considered immunized. So I actually had to get it like in my late 30s just to be considered fully immunized. But I want to say one more thing about natural immunity, like acquired immunity through illness. I do think it's interesting that my chickenpox numbers were off the charts compared to what is required, quote unquote, to be considered immune based on the vaccine, because they didn't have the vaccine, when I was a kid for that. And so natural immunity, for me, that just showed me that if you get something like, for example, COVID, then you're going to be much more protected from severe illness the next time around if you ever should get it again. So I feel the same way as you about COVID. It burned me out on vaccines, even as a nurse. And but that's the whole thing with the waning. Yeah,
so if almost everyone in adulthood has no protection from the vaccine they got as a child, why isn't measles running rampant?
Well, that's a good question, but I really don't think you can apply it to everyone, because I don't really understand the function of how you lose the immunity. Does it have to do with blood loss, like through childbirth? Does it have to do with illnesses that you've had otherwise? Does it have to do with your dietary choices? Like, how are we metabolizing the immunity? I don't know. So that would be a question for somebody who knows more about it than I do. And it is an interesting question.
Well, you're a nurse. You probably know as much about it as the doctor standing next to you.
You would think, but not on this one, I don't. So I just know that I had to get it. And so I thought that was interesting, though, because that was not what I expected when I got those levels run.
Well, it's been my experience, and what little I have faced the healthcare system, and I haven't really been sick or anything, but I've been in the room when they diagnosed my kid, or my parents have had an issue, or a roommate, or Miss Parker when she was pregnant. And what usually happens is you go into some room. You have to sit down on a piece of butcher paper, and then a nurse comes in, checks you out, tells you a whole bunch of stuff, and then a doctor comes in a few minutes later. The only difference is he's wearing a lab coat, and he tells you exactly what the nurse just said. And so most of the time I've seen a doctor or taken my kids to the doctor, I'm like, what's the point of you? We just need the nurses.
Well, I do appreciate that, and I do love nurses, as I am one. However, there is an educational difference and a licensing difference. Nurses are not actually allowed to diagnose disease.
Licenses mean nothing to me.
Well, but they do when it comes to making money. Like, I would lose my life.
And it shouldn't be so. But really, if you have been standing next to a doctor, watching what doctors do, having intimate conversations about in-depth issues, you are as qualified in my mind to be a doctor at this point, just from your experience.
Well, I'm on my way. I'm in grad school, so we'll see.
Well, you shouldn't have to go through all that, but thank you very much. We don't do that for mechanics. If you were just a guy that was standing next to a mechanic helping him out all day, after 30 years of that, I would trust you to fix my car. Tim in Waco, you're on WBAP. What do you think about this measles situation?
Yeah, so I keep hearing about the for the boosters. Anyways, I looked on the CDC website, and they say the measles and rubella, it's for life. The boosters required for mumps.
Oh, that's what it says on the CDC website.
Right.
Okay, so if that's the case, then we don't need a booster for measles. But a virologist told me, the guy from A&M had mentioned on a previous show that he recommends, if you're concerned about it, getting a booster.
Right. But
all right.
You know, for the what's it called, MMR? Yeah, there is boosters for that, but it's anyways. The CDC website does say measles is for life.
Well, how come we're not running rampant with mumps? I know you don't have the answer to that, Tim, but there's a lot of logical contradictions here. Like, if you're trying to follow the logical algorithm, the flow chart here, we're kind of crossing streams at a couple points. It's kind of driving me nuts. Michael, Grand Prairie, you're on WBAP. What do you think about the vaccine situation?
Having a personal experience from a family member with COVID vaccine who 3 weeks to the day had serious eye issues after that vaccine that were later reported in literature, which eye doctors knew about but were forbidden to talk about. I can assure you no one I know and a family member will get another mRNA vaccine. Now, I may get a flu shot, but some of these mRNA vaccines that are conditionally approved, and then you hear about this pneumonia shot they want everybody to take.
Nope.
If you listen to the ad, they say it might be affected by a conditional approval reevaluation. There's a lot of more due diligence people need to do before they get a vaccine.
Well, I didn't even have to do any research to know I shouldn't get the COVID vaccine, because what I told, and this is pretty much what got me fired from a job, is my boss said, you can't come in unless you get the vaccine. Why don't you just get the vaccine? And I told him, I cannot pretend to not know that for my entire life, a vaccine, a medicine, any kind of treatment that hadn't been tested for at least 3 years was considered so dangerous by the FDA, CDC, the medical community, the media, academia, that it was literally illegal even for terminal patients. So even if you're in hospice and you're like, hey, let's try it, I'm going to die anyway. No, it was too dangerous even for that. And now I can't have a job unless I get a vaccine that hadn't been tested for 3 years. No, I can't pretend to not know things I know. And it blows my mind how so much of the population can. Like that was my big lesson from COVID, is there's just about 40% of this country that'll do anything that's on the TV tells them to, because there's no explanation for that.
You were obviously a lot stronger individual than I was, because they threatened me with firing and under the Biden regime, because I worked in the defense industry. So more power to you that you stuck with it. And I was just trying to serve my country and keep defense products going.
Well, it wasn't that hard for me. You'd be very disappointed if you find out how little people make in radio. So it wasn't that big of a sacrifice. And plus, we get fired and canceled all the time. So it's like, I have to find a new job every 3 to 5 years anyway. Except for this one show I was on for like 11 years. But yeah, I think we all learned some lessons, some of us the tough way. Thank you very much, Michael in Grand Prairie.